Welcome to another episode of The Transformation Table. I'm your host, Trevor Naidu, and today we've got a special guest, Yugen Pillay. Welcome, Yugen.
Hi, Trevor. Thank you so much. Happy to be here today.
Now, we were talking just before we started here, and it seems like I know a lot more people from Lodium than I anticipated. You're a proud Lodium boy. Share with me some of your early childhood memories growing up in Lodium and how it shaped your career path and some of the key decisions you've made in your life.
Lodium. So when I think about Lodium, it's happy memories.
Yeah.
We grew up very close as a very close-knit community, shared in various religious functions, no matter whose home it was. We went to school up the road from where you lived. And Lodium was very unique because till today, the relationships are still very strong. I must also mention that I met my wife in Lodium from the age of 13 years old when we knew each other. I think if I look at what shaped my career and so on, Lodium is a very entrepreneurial place. You couldn't walk a few houses down the road when you don't see a shop or you see somebody selling something on the corner. And it was uniquely positioned between a township, Artridgeville, and we had a mine just on the other end. So it was very diverse and we met lots of people and just being entrepreneurial and trying to help as many people, and that started shaping the way I saw the world and what I wanted to do.
Excellent. We've had previous conversations, and today, enterprise and supply development is a term that is well known in the corporate environment and even in the social environment in South Africa because of the BE codes. What most people don't realize is it had to start at some point.
Sure.
You were in a very fortunate position where you were one of the pioneers of enterprise and supply development programs that were being rolled out in South Africa. You want to maybe share some of that early experience in enterprise and supply development? You know, what did you guys know? What did you not know? And how was that experience for you?
So in the beginning, it was really tough.
Yeah.
You had this vision where you wanted small businesses to grow. And it was at a time when the economy, your bigger brothers in the economy, your bigger entities, wasn't opening up to consulting firms that didn't have a lot of expertise. And what we started doing was started working with small businesses and assisting them to grow in supply chains. And by doing that, we were able to change the direction of supply chains and how the big corporate viewed smaller businesses. In the beginning, the criteria were very vast. And one of the earliest learnings was the mindset of the person, the entrepreneur, and building a vision. And that for me was the first steps in small business and getting them to grow.
You've got some really cool success stories. You told me once about one of the companies that, I think it was Kivali.
Yes.
You met Kivali before Kivali was known in the industry. You want to maybe share a little bit about your experience with that and how it...
So it was quite an interesting one. I met Kivali through an enterprise and supply development program that AB InBev was running at the time. AB InBev had just come into the country. And one of the owners, Dan, was a chemistry teacher. And when I first met Dan, and having a look at all the experience he had versus the type of service offering that he was doing at the moment, which was supplying chemicals that you would buy and supply to AB InBev. And in a conversation one day, he was telling me about different compounds that goes into the chemical process.
Yeah.
And we encouraged him to try it out and make his own. Yeah. And while going through the program, Dan was able to do this, and he was able to have a look at different chemicals, and before you knew it, Dan was able to get finance. He was able to build a factory, became one of the largest chemical companies in South Africa, and I must say when I speak to Dan nowadays, it's still the same Dan, just somebody that had the passion to do something, and the impact that they've created is just phenomenal.
But I mean, it's definitely a case of enterprise and supply development working to create not just a sustainable business, but a very large business that's playing an important role in the chemical sector in South Africa. Yeah, so you have had an illustrious career in corporate, which you can share a little bit about, but you were one of the first, if not the first African, to be qualified by the United Nations on their SDG Impact Standards framework.
Right.
Maybe share with us your journey around that and how you transitioned from being a full-time corporate junkie, for the lack of a better word, to now a full-time entrepreneur running your own business.
Thank you for the question. So when I was in my corporate career, like you mentioned, dealing with enterprise and supplier development programs, there were lots of learnings along the way. And one of those learnings was a truly successful SME or small business must be a sustainable one. And in order for that SME to be sustainable, there's a lot of support that SME would need. And that would be from the supply chain that they're in, from government, where it's funding, from opportunities, from entities like the UN. Yeah. And the SDGs was something that was always close to my heart. But what was said while I was at corporate was looking at clients that weren't really having an impact on the SDGs. So I was quite excited when the UN had come up with the SDG Impact Standards. And I was in the first cohort that was chosen to be part of the learnings. And yes, I was the first person in Africa to qualify. And what those standards do is it actually gives you a roadmap on how to have impact on the SDGs. Having the qualification, and having a big, large conversation with my wife, we decided we wanted to be the change that we want to see in the world. We both gave up our careers and we co-founded Sustainability Development Global, which stands for SDG as well. And a year later, we have trained over 600 people in 32 different countries. Wow. And from governments to CEOs to SMEs, and still going strong and
well done.
Make an impact.
Well done on that. I think a lot of, we talk about sustainability and it's become a buzzword in corporates across the world, and it's often interchanged with ESG, environmental social governance. Mm-hmm. And there's, I would say, two different camps. Yeah. There's one camp that is all for sustainability, and there's another camp that says, well, this is just another compliance requirement, and let's try and do the bare minimum that we can in order to get this over the line. Sure. Like we've done with any other compliance regulations that's required from a corporate. What would you say is different with sustainability as opposed to other compliance regulations that have been put onto companies in the past, and what are leaders missing out if they don't embrace it fully?
All right. I think we need to first of all understand the difference between sustainability and ESG. Sure. So sustainability, in a very quick sentence, if I was explaining it to a youngster, is whatever you do today, make sure that you can still do it tomorrow, but without hurting people or planet. Right? That's sustainability. Sustainability is an inside-out approach. It's a culture that you create within your environment on how you are able to be sustainable going forward in what you can control. ESG, on the other hand, is a reporting framework. Okay. So it's how the world sees you and the lens through which the world sees you. So that's an outside-in approach. And therefore, these are two very different sort of concepts. And whatever you do in sustainability, if you do it right, no matter what ESG framework you use, you'd be on the right path.
I read a recent report that says that there's over 500 different ESG frameworks, reporting frameworks that are out in the market right now.
Sure.
And I feel like the sentiment in the market right now is everyone's grasping to try and get their ESG report out, etc., all of those things. And they're missing the point of sustainability. They're merging the two into one.
Yeah.
is that one of the reasons as to why the United Nations have come up with the SDG Impact Standards framework? What were they seeing in some of the results that led them to put this framework in place, and what are the results that they're hoping to see with the adoption of this framework?
So the closer we get to 2030, because that's the deadline for the 17 development goals, sustainable development goals, the more you're seeing a shift in the world. There's more funding becoming available for the SDGs. There's more reporting, like you say, frameworks that are out there. So when the United Nations Development Program put the SDG Impact Standards together, it was not, or it is not, a reporting framework.
Okay.
It's a decision-making framework. Now, why that's important is because if I make the correct decisions upfront in the boardroom, in my strategies, no matter which of those 500 odd ESG frameworks I'm reporting on, I'll be able to do so in a transparent manner that has been signed off by the board. And what do we find in the market is when you have so many different frameworks to report on, you tend to greenwash to what the reports are asking and trying to work backwards into your entity. And that's no way to create a culture. And so therefore, these standards are meant from your strategy to assist you to make decisions that can transparently be reported on in any framework.
Okay. And there's a lot of frameworks that are out there regarding sustainability, ESG, etc. Is the United Nations view that this will become the preemptive golden standard that most companies would adopt? And how are they going to manage that process?
Okay. So the idea is when an entity is putting together their strategy, when they're dealing with their staff members, when they're dealing with stakeholders, that they would use the SDG Impact Standards. SDGs should always be at the forefront of the thinking, the products, the decision-making that goes forward, and that's the idea.
Okay.
That whatever product I'm going to create, once again, I'm not going to hurt people or planet in doing so. And so what the United Nations wants to see is that in the boardrooms, we are making the decisions in a transparent manner that can be then taken out to management and management into stakeholders. The reporting part, that is in whichever framework you want to deal with. And that's the idea, because we're trying to not have any SDG washing as such.
Yeah.
Many entities look at the 17 goals and on face value choose their actions, and that is not the correct way to do it.
Because ultimately you first start, as you mentioned, inside out.
Yes.
You're thinking about the sustainability of your business, and then how can you expand that outside of your business into impact areas that are aligned with the 17 SDG goals and that sit within your value chain.
That's right. So when you look at sustainability, you have to look at what's material to your stakeholders. And stakeholders is anybody affected by your business or your enterprise.
Okay, excellent. In South Africa, just moving it a little bit closer to home right now, we've had the BE codes for over 2 decades now. From your end, you're well experienced in that, and you're well experienced in sustainability. From your experience on working with both of these pieces of legislation / compliance, where do you see the similarities, and where do you see South Africa having a competitive advantage over its international peers with regard to us having BEE in our country for over 20 years?
Okay. So BE and sustainability goes hand in hand. Okay. They both want to achieve the same thing. That's inclusivity. They want the economy to grow and make sure that everyone participates in it. If we look at a recent study that was done, you would see that 93% of entities in South Africa does the BE, they conform to BE.
Yes.
7% does not, and does not want to. When you look at SDGs, 80% of entities in South Africa are currently doing it, and 20% are moving over to eventually do the SDGs. There is 0 entities that are saying SDGs is not for them. Now, why this is great for South Africa is, first of all, you'll see that there'll be a framework being the SDGs that everyone is on. But because we have this 20-year advantage of having the B, it then gives us a competitive advantage, especially when we are looking for opportunities internationally, because we would have already have policies and track records, as well as learnings from implementing BE that we'll be able to use forward and be able to communicate as long as we're using the SDGs as a roadmap.
I mean, you're speaking to executives and you're sharing with them and expanding their knowledge in sustainability. Yeah. Do you see them joining the dots between BEE and sustainability and identifying that there is a very unique opportunity to have a competitive advantage in the market? Mm-hmm. Are they joining the dots, or are they still compliant focus?
Okay. So what we're seeing going forward is that the joining of the dots is happening. And the reason why it's happening is because you see international markets, you see international companies that are, for example, dealing with the SDGs, and they then asking the entities that are in our country to also comply with the SDGs. You'd see that would normally sit in the same office with the BE. And there's already projects that's happening, and therefore you'd be able to see that the similarities, and it will be quite an easy process if you follow the BE Act correctly, to be able to link that up to SDG goals. And once it's in an SDG goal, no matter where you are in the country, no matter, as long as it's a United Nations country, no matter what language, if you're linked up to an SDG goal, it's only those goals. It's only that roadmap. You'll be able to communicate with anybody in the world, providing they're also following the SDG roadmap.
Yeah, on a global scale.
On a global scale.
Effectively, in the aspects where it's aligned to the BE codes, it's sensitizing the international market to all of the BE initiatives that you've been doing for years, by leveraging of speaking the SDG language, having the right framework, and reporting correctly against it. I think from what I'm hearing you say, the second advantage would be we already have an ecosystem that's aligned to the 17 SDG goals. Because of BE, we've had service providers and experts come in different facets, helping with job creation, entrepreneurial. So the other thing that is coming out for me is that, firstly, we can align the SDG goals or the BEE initiatives that we're doing to the SDG goals, and that allows us to speak at an international level around the initiatives that we're doing. The second thing that it's doing is, because we've had a landscape and an ecosystem surrounded through BEE for 20 years, we already have solutions in the market that are readily available for corporates to bring into their ecosystem to create the impact that they want to create. And that's where the competitive advantage comes in.
Yes. And the golden nugget, the trick, is how to take your projects and use the correct taxonomy that the global world understands in sustainability. Because, like you earlier asked me, what's my definition of sustainability could be very different to somebody else's definition. But there is in the world a definition of sustainability, for example. So if you use the right wording, you'll be able to immediately attract the right type of stakeholder.